she's not Nikudeshes. The other case was if a woman made a shliach to be Makabal Kiddushin on her behalf, and then in middle or before the Kiddushin, before this fellow was Makabal Kiddushin, before the shliach was Makabal Kiddushin, she changed her mind. In both those cases, we paskin that Osi Dibur Mavatal Dibur, and therefore she's not Mekudeshes if this fellow was Makabal Kiddushin for her, and she's not Mekudeshes if she changed her mind within the 30 days. Now we're getting into the sugya of someone who said, Haret Mekudeshesli, Me'achshav ula achar shloshim yom. And then the Mishnah says somebody else came along and was Makadosh from between. It's Mekudeshes ve'edim Mekudeshes. And we started off with the Machlokes with Rav and Shmuel. Mekudeshes l'sheni, Amar Rav, Mekudeshes l'sheni l'olam. So actually I have to take a step back. We're still going on the original case where if she said ula achar shloshim yom, and then she was Makadosh, and then she accepted Kiddushin from a second person, she'll be Mekudeshes l'sheni. Rav says l'olam, meaning since the first Kiddushin wasn't chal till after 30 days, the second Kiddushin is chal as soon as it's made, so she's married to the second person forever. Only until the first Kiddushin that was made is chal in 30 days. Once 30 days arrives, and now the first Kiddushin is chal, Haki Kiddushay Sheni. The second Kiddushin now goes away, it's removed. The Gamer Kiddusha Rishon. And the first Kiddushin is Nigmar, which is very difficult to understand, as Reb Chisda asked. Yosy Reb Chisda, the Kakashale, Kiddusha Sheni, the Maipoka. With what magic did the Kiddusha Sheni disappear? When the Kiddusha Sheni was chal, she was a Penuya. She became a Kodeshes. So how could the Kiddusha Rishon now be chal in 30 days? Omer le Rav Yosef said, Mar Aresha Mastila. You quoted the Machlokes Rav and Shmuel on the Resha where the first fellow said, La'achar Lamed. And therefore, V'koshel. I understand, it makes no sense at all. How could she be Mekudeshes to the Rishon after 30 days if she's already Mekudeshes to the Sheni? But Rav Yehuda, Aseifa Mastila. Rav Yehuda quoted the Machlokes between Rav and Shmuel on the second case, where the first Kiddushin wasn't La'achar Lamed, it was Me'achshav La'achar Lamed. And we'll have to see what that means. And therefore, he didn't have a question on how to understand Shmuel's halach, that it's Mekudeshes l'Rishon after 30 days. Me'achshav La'achar shloshim yom, the Mishnah says Mekudeshes ve'enim Mekudeshes. Amarav, this status of Mekudeshes ve'enim Mekudeshes is lo'olam, because it remains a suffix if she's married to the first or if she's married to the second, and the Gemara will elaborate shortly. Ushmul Amar Mekudeshes ve'enim Mekudeshes ela al ad lamed yom. This status of suffix is until 30 days. La'achar lamed, after 30 days, Haki Kiddusha Sheni, the Kiddushin of the second person is gone, the Gamri Kiddusha Rishon. And then we say she's only Mekudeshes to the Rishon. How does that work out? If someone says Me'achshav ula'achar lamed yom, if you think about his words, it could be at night. Me'achshav, I want the Kiddushin to be chal right now. Ula'achar lamed, that's almanas that I'm still willing to enter into this marriage in 30 days from today. Which means, if 30 days from today arrive, and I want this marriage, she's Mekudeshes from the moment he originally gave her the Kiddushin. If that's the case, then the first Kiddushin was typhus right away. The second Kiddushin has no tfis at all. But it's also possible, it's also possible that this fellow was a schizophrenic. And he said, and then mid-sentence, he changed his mind. And he said, no, I mean, ula'achar lamed. And therefore, he's making a Kiddushin that's only chal la'achar lamed. And therefore, the Kiddushi Sheni, who made a Kiddushin 10 days later, his Kiddushin was chal. So we don't know, is the first Kiddushin chal or is the second Kiddushin chal? Even when 30 days pass, we're still in that same suffix. So forever and ever, we don't know if she's married to the first guy or to the second guy, and therefore lo olam we say she's mekudeshes vein mekudeshes. Me'achshav l'achar lamed. Then surely l'achar lamed. That's correct. According to everybody. Yeah. The Shmuel, Shidalei did to know. Shmuel says, no, this is for sure Tanai. If it's for sure Tanai, then it makes perfect sense. Up until 30 days, she's suffik mekudeshes to the Sheni. Because we don't know if he's going to fulfill the Tanai or not. But once 30 days arrives, and he says, yes, I want this marriage, so Lemafreya, she's married to the first man. And therefore, the Kedusha Sheni is null and void. So therefore, she's only in a matzav of suffik until the 30 days arrive. After that, it becomes very clear who she would have been married. So this machloikis of suffik Tanai, suffik Chazara, which is the sheet of Rav, versus Shmuel, who holds for sure it's a Tanai, will be plucked to the Hani Tanoi. There's a set of Tanoim who have the same machloikis, and we always know it's not good for a set of Amayroyim to be arguing in a machloikis that the Tanoim are arguing on, unless they're quoting them. Unless Shmuel could have said, I hold like A, and Rav could have said, I hold like B. Since they express it as their own independent machloikis, it's a little bit of a difficult. The Tanya, someone gave a get to his wife, and he said it should be chal mehayoymu la'achamisa. Get ve'ena get. Divrei Chachama. The Chacham says it's a suffix if it's a get, because if it's a Tanai and it's chal right now, except the Tanai was that he should die, then it's a get. But if he meant it should only be chal la'achamisa, a get cannot be chal la'achamisa. So that's what the Chacham holds. Rabbi says kozeh get. This would be a get, meaning it's for sure a Tanai. So this is exactly the same machlokes, where Shmuel would hold like Rabbi and Rav would hold like Rabbanon. In fact, Gemara, if that's what the case is, the name of Rav hold like Rabbanon, the name of Shmuel hold like Rabbi. Why do they package it like it's their own machlokes? They should have just taken sides on this machlokes Tanoim. Like Gemara Tzricha. It's not the same machlokes. There's a difference between Gerushin and Kiddushin. Because the Ilu Amar Rav halachic Rabbanon. If all Rav would have said that in the case of Gerushin, it's a suffix Nai, suffix Chazara, Havamina, I would have said, Hosam to L'chayka. Where is there a tzad that maybe he changed his mind to push off the get? That's only by a get. You know why? Because he's divorcing his wife. It's very painful to do that. So maybe he wants to delay the breakup of his marriage. Maybe there's a slight glimmer of a hope that maybe he'll be able to repair the marriage. So there it's natural that he might want to push it off. But our discussion is Kiddushin. He wants to marry this woman. Why would he change his mind to push it off 30 days? It's more of a svara to say that it's a Tanai. Maybe he would agree to Shmuel that it's a Tanai. It's no haba. So therefore, Rav had to speak out that I hold, even by Kiddushin, there's a tzad to say that it was a chazar. And if Shmuel would have just said that the halacha is like Rabbi, that by get you say that it's a t'nai, not a chazara, havamina hasam, who then get lachamisa. Sure, by get it has to be a t'nai, because every person knows that you can't give a get when you're dead. So since you can't give a get when you're dead, there it has to be a t'nai. Here the t'nai wasn't Kiddushin me'ayom ulachamisa, it was me'ayom ulachalamed. Everybody knows that the same way you could be mekadosh a woman today, you could be mekadosh a woman in 30 days. So then maybe it was changing his mind to delay the Kiddushin. So that's why these two machlokes are similar, but they're not parallel, and that's why Rav and Shmuel have to express that this machlokes applies by Kiddushin. Amar Abai, Rav. So now that you hold like Rav, where it's a suffix if it's a Tanai, or a suffix if it's changing his mind to delay the Kiddushin. So what would happen if Bo'achar, after the first person said, someone said, that was the first guy. And then, okay? And then a third guy came and said, So let's think about this. If it's a Tanai, then she's Mukudeshes to the Rishon, right? If it's a Chazara, then she's Mukudeshes to the Shlishi, who said Lachas Arya. So there's a suffix if she's married to the Rishon or to the Shlishi. She's for sure not married to the Sheni because of Manashah. If it's a Tanai, she's not married to the Sheni, and if it's a change of mind, she's not Mukudeshes to the Sheni. So therefore, Zok to Gemara, Merisha Mayach and Tzricha get. She'll need to get from the first and from the third, but Meim Tzoi from the guy in the middle ain't a Tzricha get. Manavshich, It no have. If it's a Tanai, well then the Kama Kedusha, the first person's Kedushin is Chal, the Hanachlav Kedushin, and the second and third fellow, they came too late to the game. If it's a Chazara, well then the Basra Kedusha, the third fellow whose Kedushin was Chal after 10 days, his Kedushin was a good Kedushin, the Hanachlav Kedusha, but number 1 and number 2 has no Kedushin, but number 2, everybody agrees has no Kedushin. Fekim Pshita. So you made a little complicated case using this structure. I mean, I could figure that out on my own. With all due respect, I don't need you to tell me that. So tomorrow, you do need me to tell me. You know why? Because Ma'al Tema, when Rav said Safek Tanai, Safek Chazara, does that mean every person has his own individuality, and in each person who said this, he might have meant A or he might have meant B? If that's the case, then maybe the first guy meant as a Chazara, and the third guy could have meant Me'achshav. So therefore, the second guy might have the Kedusha. So Ma'al Tema, Hi, Lishna Mashma Tnoy, Mashma Chazara, and therefore V'tiboy Gita Mikol Chad B'chad. Now there's a possibility that she is Mukudeshes L'Sheni, because the first guy could have meant that the Kedusha should only be Chalach Chalamet. The second guy might have meant as a T'nai. And the third guy could have meant also Lachir Asar Yam. And then she'll be Mukudeshes L'Sheni, Kamash Milan to know. Chazal has a shayla what this Lashon means. But for anyone who said it, it either means Tanai or it means Chazar. It's not shot that we have no idea what this guy meant, and one guy could have meant one way, and the other guy could have meant the other way. That's not an option. And that's the Kiddush of this halacha, that you only need to get from the Rishon and from the Shlishi, not from the Sheni, because it's either all hold it to Tanai or all hold it to Chazar, but it's not like everyone would have meant something different. This Lashon means one thing. We just don't know what it means. Ula Amar Rabbi Yochanan. Ula says in the name of Rabbi Yochanan, an off-the-charts Chiddush. Afilu Meya Toifsim. We had this list of 3 people who made Kiddushin. Even 100 people in this fashion, the Kiddushin would be Toifus. A huge Chiddush. How could the Kiddushin of more than one person be Toifus? V'chein Amar Rabasi Amar Rabbi Yochanan, Afilu Meya Toifsim. Omalei Rab Mishar Shabarei Rav Hami Rabasi. Naturally, you need help understanding Rabbi Yochanan's words. How does this work? As Rashi says, the you can't say it's the Havamin of the previous Gemara, where each person could have meant something else, and therefore it's actually a suffix in each one of these 100 people whose Kedushin was Chal. That's not what Rabbi Yochanan could have meant. You know what? Rabbi Yochanan didn't say she needs a get from everybody. Rabbi Yochanan said, "Afilu mea toifsim." And Rashi tells us, "Ein tfisa ela be'echad." In the case of Suffolk, the earlier Havamina, it's a suffix. Each person's Kedushin might have been Chal, but surely they weren't all Chal. That's what it means. That's what it would be if it was a suffix. Since Rabbi Yochanan's language is toifsin ba, mash of the svirle sheyesh botzat kedushin l'chud. So Rabbi Yochanan's chiddush is an off-the-charts chiddush, and it requires an explanation because he's saying a whole new concept that simultaneously she's actually mikudeshes to multiple people. How is that possible? Zakir Basi, Azbulach, time of Rabbi Yochanan. When you build a block building, you don't just make a whole series of piles of blocks because they'll just tumble. our bricks are put in offset. So the lower level is a row of bricks. The second level, each brick is in between two bricks. That sort of binds things together. So therefore, Kishraga Livni, the Kol Chad V'Chad, Rafcha L'Chavrei Shav. Everybody, by making that Tanai, is leaving space for somewhat of his friend's Kiddushin to be Chal. You could only imagine what a firestorm of Rosh Hashiva Shiurim are on the structure of this Kiddushin. I'll just throw out one idea that I heard, that it's a Kiddushin that's not complete in its kabos. I'm sorry, in its echos, not in its kabos. So it's a complete Kiddushin, but it's only Chal 3-4%, and then it grows. So it's a thin layer of Kiddushin. Let's say Kiddushin is a 1-inch thick layer. Now, the way it works is first like a millimeter thickness envelopes her, and then it gets thicker and thicker. So because of that, there's room for the different layers to be Chal. Again, that doesn't really give us a deep understanding of it. It's only an inch thick. It's not a deep understanding, but nevertheless, it's a source of a lot of Torah. Let's at least see Rashi's Torah. Rashi says, the Shavan Avshayu Kishragin Livni, Hamasad Levenim, V'rochav Kulon Shav. Someone setting up blocks, and the width of each of the blocks are the same width. Unlike in the Kaisel, where it's pyramid style. Einim Masad Mamash Zu al Zu. You don't just pile one block on top of another. The outer row will just tumble over. The first row at the bottom is just a row of blocks. But it's offset. When you put the second block on top of the first block, it's offset, it's hanging over on the other block halfway, so that you can have two blocks resting on each lower block. And partway on another block. And every block is partially covered by one block and partially covered by another block. Every Kiddushin found some space to be toifis, and all of the Kiddushins are somewhat chal. They're fully chal in their coverage, but not in their intensity, which is how some achronim were. But again, this is something where we can have a whole bunch of shiurim on. Maser Rav Chanina. So Frek Rav Chanina Kash. Me'ayoim ula achar misa. If someone gave a get and he said it should be chal me'ayoim ula achar misa, get ve'ena get, it's a suffix if it's a get. What if there's a surviving brother? So there's a question of if she's still married to her late husband, so then she's Mechliv in Yibum. But if the get was a get, then she's usher to marry her brother. Since we don't know if it was a Tanai or if it was a Chazara, we cannot let her do Yibum, but we cannot let her marry without Yibum. So therefore, you have her do Chalitza. According to Rab, it makes perfect sense because Misayeh it's a raya to Rav. Rav said it was a suffix if it's me'achshav or if it's a chazara, and that would make perfect sense. Why by get we say she needs chalitza? L'Shmuel nami. According to Shmuel, I can also explain this. Even though Shmuel holds by Kiddushin, you say that it's for sure tonight. But remember, Shmuel said I could agree with the Rabbanan who holds by get it could still be a suffix. Hamani Rabbanani. Shmuel said before that I'm not telling the machlekes by gittin, because maybe by gittin it would be a suffix that maybe it is a chazara because he wants to push it off. V'anan dami Rebbe, and I said my shita according to Rebbe. Ella l'Rebbe Yochanan, who says that all of the Kedushin are chal, damar sheyurah. Well, we know there's a rule called Gita de Mishayirba V'leklumu. A get that's not a total frisus is not a get at all. You might be able to play around with a partial Kedushin, but a partial get, there's no such thing. So if this is surely not a get, if it's surely not a get, Yibum Miyabim. Why wouldn't she get Yibum according to Rabbi Yochanan's understanding? Amarava, well, maybe it's a combined effort between the get and the misa. Get lahaitzi, umisa lahaitzi. Mashashayir get, gamrasai misa. Maybe the get didn't do a full job, because as Rabbi Yochanan learns, such a scenario is a full coverage, but low in intensity, right? And therefore, maybe the get didn't fully do the job. And the misa completed the job. And therefore, it's a suffix. Amalei Abai said, I don't like that shot. Midami, how can you compare how we understood Rabbi Yochanan's understanding of Kiddushin to get Maitzir Mishus Yovin, Misa Machnasa Lishus Yovin. Here, you can't have get and Misa working together, because if she's released from her husband through a get, then she's not Mechuyev in Yibum. But if she was released from her first marriage through Misa, that's putting into the Rishus Yovin. So how could these two work together to create a suffix? Elamar Baye, Izak Baye, I'll tell you how Rabbi Yochanan processes this halacha by get, why she needs chalitza. Really, she doesn't need chalitza, because according to Rabbi Yochanan, it's not a get at all, and vadai, she could get yibum. So why don't we let her do yibum? Hashem taimamai, it's a gzeira. It's a gzeira mishum mehayim imesi. If someone says mehayim umesi, that is for sure hareza get. That's for sure again, because he's saying, I want to be chal now, imesi. Not me'achshav ula achamisa, me'ayom imesi, that's clearly it's not. There it's clear that he wants to get to be chal from now. In that case, in fact, yibum would not be allowed, because it was a good get. This is a very similar case. Me'achshav ula achamisa. That's a very similar case. And if we're going to say that over there you could do yibum, people are going to also think that me'ayom imesi you could do yibum. Therefore, they said, do chalitza. Frank Gemara, who said because of this gzeira, you should tell her, thank you so much, you should tell her not to do yibum, and you should tell her to do chalitza, maybe make a gzeira on the other case. That instead of her not needing anything, because we say for sure it was a get, maybe there we should require a chalitza, the taklates. Maybe do that. Who said the takana should be on the Me'achshav case? Maybe the takana should be on the Me'ayim Mesi case. So, so tomorrow that would be a big problem. Because take this woman, he gave her a get and said Me'ayim Mesi. She's for sure not Mechuyev in Yibum, because it's for sure a good get. If you require that she should require chalitza, people are going to think, hey, why does she need chalitza? Maybe if it wasn't a get. And they're going to mistakenly, in certain cases, allow her to make Yibum also. And here she's a Vadai Migureshes, so she for sure can't do Yibum. So therefore, we don't want to make a takana that this woman requires chalitza, because that's going to lead people to mistakenly think that maybe she can do Yibum as well. Frank the Gemara, Hachanami, if you're going to make a gzeira and don't let this woman do Yibum, in the case of Me'achshav, Achar Misa, if you don't let her do Yibum and you only let her do chalitza, Hachanami, if you only let her do chalitza, she might do Yibum as well. Zok big deal. Tis Yabum. Let her make Yibum. We know technically it was not a get. And if it's technically not a get, she could do Yibum. We're having her do chalitza so that people wouldn't have them do chalitza in the other case. But here, if she ends up doing Yibum, Midarasha, she's allowed to do Yibum. Because Midarasha, anyway, it's not a get. Tis Yabum ve'in bekach klum, shasha derabanu. The only reason why we didn't want to let her do Yibum is because we didn't want people to mix it up with Me'ayim and Mesi. But technically she could do Yibum. So therefore, we're happy to make a gzeira that she should only do chalitza, because even if that leads you to do Yibum mistakenly, it's no great harm done. B'daraisa, she's allowed to do Yibum anyway. Gewaltig. Thank you very much. Oh, so now we have Machlokes Rav Shmuel and Rabbi Yochanan, how this may achshav ulachar lamed, how a Kiddushin works with may achshav ulachar lamed. Rav says it's a suffix if it's a tnai or chazara. Shmuel says it's vade at tnai, and Rabbi Yochanan says it's this new concept of multiple layers of Kiddushin being chal. Zok tehel gemar vayter. Ha'omer liisha hareyat mukadeshes li almanas she'etin loch b'sayim zuz. Here's a pruta. I'm being mekadeshu, but I'm making a tonight that I'm going to give you a gift of 200 zuz. The halachas are rezu mukudeshes. We consider this woman mukudeshes, but v'huyite. Of course, he has to come up with the money. By when does he have to come up with the money? It seems like he has unlimited time. But until the time he comes up with the money, there's going to be a suffix here. What if he says, what if he said, I'm going to give you the money within 30 days? Then he has to fulfill that night. The Gemara is going to ask, why is this a chiddush? What if he said, he was Mekadosh this woman, Almanach that he's a millionaire. I'm being Mekadosh, not that I'm giving it to you, but you want to marry a rich man. I'm Mekadosh, Almanach that I'm a millionaire, I have Masayim Zuz. I raise him Mekadeshes, V'yeshla. If he in fact does have Masayim Zuz, it'll be a good Kiddushin. Almanach Erech Masayim Zuz. What if he says, I'm marrying you, Almanach that I'll show you 200 Zuz. The halach is, I raise him Mekadeshes, V'yirla. He's Mukadesh, but he has to show it to her. But what if Imher al Shulchan? What if he was a Shulchani, so he was in the money exchange business, and he showed her 200 Jews sitting on the table, but it wasn't his? Then Eidim Mukadeshes. Because it's clear that what it means here, what he means is not, and what she's expecting is not stam that he could point to 200 Jews. Obviously, she wants it to be his money. Zok Teile Gemara. Itmar Rav Huna Amar v'hu yitein. Who yitein means he said a woman. He told a woman, Haret mukadeshes li. I'm not. I give you 200 zuz. So Haret mukadeshes of yitein. Zok Rav Huna. She's mukadeshes now. Sometime in the future, he has to pay her the money. Rabbi Yehuda Melechashit. Rabbi Yehuda don't know. The Kiddushin is not chal until he actually comes up with the money. Rav Huna Amar v'hu yitein. Tanah, it's a regular Tanai. The Tanai could be fulfilled any time in the future, and Lemafreya, the Kiddushin, will be Chal. So therefore, Mekayim Tanah also. All he has to do is sometime in the future be Mekayim the Tanai, and he's already married Lemafreya. If Yehuda Amar, Lichish Hayite. No, the Kiddushin is not Chal now, it's only Chal when he actually gives to the 200 Jews. Lichiyayev have a Kiddushin. Hashtami Allah have a Kiddushin. My beinayu, what's the difference if the Kiddushin is chal now or if the Kiddushin is chal later? Very partial. Ike beinayu shapashta yoda v'kibla Kiddushin meyacher. If she accepted Kiddushin from somebody else before this first fellow came up with the 200 Jews. L'Rav Huna lo have a Kiddushin. Why? Because the first Kiddushin is chal once he fulfills the Tnai, l'mafreya at the time when he gave her the pruta. Rabbi Yehuda have a Kiddushin. But according to Rabbi Yehuda, the second Kiddushin is a good Kiddushin because the first Kiddushin was not chal because he didn't come up with the money yet. We also find a similar machlokes in relation to Gittin. He's extorting money from her. I'm only going to give you your get if you give me 200 zuz. The get's chal right away, but eventually she has to come up with the money. So, Itmar, we learned on this mission as well. Rav Huna Amar v'hititein, meaning it's chal, the get's chal right away, but you have to eventually come up with the money. Yehuda Amar lichesh atitein, the get's only chal when she delivers the money. Rav Huna Amar v'hititein tanah, it's merely a tanai, just as he said by Kiddushin. Mekayim tnavozla. Yehuda Amar lichesh atitein lichiyay v'lei udav get. Only when she gives him the money will her get michal hashtami la'avik. But right now, they get not chal until she actually comes up with the funds. My bainayu, what's the difference between if it's a good get or not? You can't say if she was makabel get from somebody else. Iki bainayu sheniskara get. What if the get became ripped up? So when the Tanai was niskayim, there was no get left. So if you hold that the get's chalim afreya, who cares if it got torn up? The Tanai just triggers the original get. But if the get is only chal, once she actually gives him the money, at that point there's no get here. So it wouldn't work. Or if the get was lost. Rav Huna have a get, because the get was chal already as soon as it was given. Rav Yehuda lo have a get. Now, before we go weiter, there's a very important point to make over here that Tosfos makes. I brushed it off, but really it's a serious issue. The same way the Gemara said in Afkamina between Rav Huna and Rabbi Yehuda, like Abba Kiddushin, was what if she was Makabal Kiddushin from somebody else in between? Why don't we have that same Nafkamina by get? He gave her the get. She didn't come up with the money until 3 months later, and she was Makabal Kiddushin from somebody. If the get was Chala Mafreya, then she's married to this fellow because Kum Techoy she was Megureshes. But if the get's only Chal later, then the Kiddushin is not good. That's what the top Tosfos talks about. And Tosfos says a bomb Chiddush that in fact L'chula Alma it would need a get. So let's quickly run through Tosfos because it's a very Yosy Tosfos. Like we said, Lagabe Kiddushin. Then the Gemara would have had to say, according to Rav Huna, you need to get Misheni. Why? Because the first get was Chal Mafreya. Rabbi Yehuda any tzricha get Misheni. So Tosfos Valasa, that's not true. To Afidul Rabbi Yehuda Nami tzricha get Misab. Even according to Rabbi Yehuda, that the get is not Chal, fully Chal, till she comes up with the money, it would still require a get. Kidapirish Ri Beperk Mishachsoy Lechashatiten the Megureshes ve'eni Megureshes Achatite. We still say that it would require a get. So Tosfos gets into those details over there. But I'll call upon him, that's important to note, that if she was Makabal Kiddushin from somebody else, even according to Rabbi Yehuda, who holds the get isn't Chal until later, she would still need a get from the second guy.
I don't think it's right.
Yeah. Okay, so Zok Tegavar, Utricha. Why was it necessary to discuss the machlokes between Rav Huna and Rabbi Yehuda side by Kiddushin and side by Gerushin? Once they have this machlokes, if it means the get's Chal now or the Kiddushin's Chal now, and you have to fulfill the Tanai later, like Rav Huna or like Rabbi Yehuda, that it's not Chal until you fulfill the Tanai, why did they need to repeat this machlokes by Gerushin and by Kiddushin? The Hashmina Gabe Kiddushin. If they only express this machlokes Gabe Kiddushin, B'Hakam Rav Huna. Maybe that's where Rav Huna said it's Chal right away. Mishum de l'Krayvakas. Once again, he's marrying her. He wants to be married to her as soon as possible, just like what Yaakov did. I'll marry her now, and then I'll work 6 years. Right? Al Gerushin. That's what he did with Rachel. What? 7. Oh, okay. Mishum de l'Krayvakas. You have a Gerushin. The l'Rachakasi. Maybe he's modest l'chashatite. Maybe he agrees to Rabbi Yehuda that it's not Chal until later. And if we only knew by Gerushin, then I would have said Bahach Kam Rav Huna. There Rav Huna said that it's Chal right away. By get. You know why? He's not embarrassed to demand the money from her. He'll give her the get. It'll be Chal right now because he'll run after her for the money. By Kiddushin, she'll be embarrassed to run after him for the money. Therefore, maybe she won't be maskim to the Kiddushin until she actually gets the money. That's why it was important that they shared this machlokes and they maintained their individual svaros side by Gerushin, side by Kiddushin. Here's your get, Amanas, that you give me 200 zuz. Even though the get is no longer around at the time of payment, she is Megureshes, clearly like Rav Huna. That she shouldn't remarry until she comes up with the money, because we want to make sure that she will eventually fulfill the T'nai. If she never fulfills the T'nai, she was always a Neshish. So technically, the get is good, but she shouldn't get married until she fulfills the T'nai. That's a big kasha on Rav Yehuda. And then he dies. So if he dies, she can't give him the Messiah Zuz. Nosna, if she had given him the money before he died, she's Megureshes, and therefore she doesn't fall to Yibam. Loi Nosna, if she didn't give him the money before he died, she will still have to need Yibam. But whatever the case is, you see it's Viter T'nai because it was Chalam Afreya. Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel, even after he died, she could still be Mekayim T'nai by giving the money to his next of kin. So Atkan Loi Pligi, the whole machlokes between Rabbi Shimon ben Gamliel and the Tanakama is whether or not you can fulfill the Tanai by paying his next of kin. El Demar Sover leave a lowly Yarshai. One Mandavar learns that his Tanai was Badafki, you have to give me the money. You're not going to fulfill your Tanai by giving the money to my next of kin. And the Pshimim Gamliel to my Sover, I feel Yarshai. But the Chula Almamiyah to know have. But everybody agrees that like Rav Huna says, it's Tanai. So you have to do Rav Yehuda. This is a very big kash on Rabbi Yehuda, who says the get isn't chal until later. And surely this get couldn't work at all because the Tanai was not fulfilled until after the man died. Amalach Rabbi Yehuda, you're right. Hamani Rebbe, I'll have to learn that this is going according to Rebbe. Who is Rebbe? The Amar Afun Amar Rebbe. Whenever you say Almanas, it's here the lashon was Hareza Gita Almanash Titni Limasayim Zuz. Let's look at precisely what was the case where Rav Yehuda argues. Almanash Titni Limasayim Zuz. Okay, so it's the same lashon, but it's going according to Rebbe. We hold Almanas could mean later on. Rebbe has a special shita that Almanas always means Mayachshav. Rabbi Yehuda could learn that those who argue on Rebbe hold that Almanas doesn't necessarily mean Mayachshav. Rebbe holds Almanas means Mayachshav. Upligi Rabbanan. The Rabbanan hold that Almanas doesn't mean Mayachshav. So Rabbi Yehuda v'anod amik Rabbanan. My halacha that says that it's lichish atitein, that's not consistent with Rebbe. That's true. But according to the Rabbanan, it will be lichish atitein. Let me stop in a second. Mayom Lachamisa is everybody would agree. Well, that's a good question. What Mayom Lachamisa is it like Amanas? So let's stop a second. Gufa. Amar Avuna, the Gemara is going to discuss this directly. Amar Avuda, Amar Rebbe. V'lo'im Amanas, k'ayim Machshav Dam. Amar Bzeir, K'avinim beBavel. When we were in Bavel, Havar Minon, we said this over. Had Amar Avuna, Amar Rebbe. We said over this halacha of K'ayim Amanas, k'ayim Machshav Dam. And we said, Pligi Rabbanon. Rabbanon argued on it. He saw Kilahasam when we got up to Eretz Yisrael. Ashkechel Rabasi. We met Rabasi. The Yosy v'Ka'amala Mishmeid Rabbi Yochanan. He said over in the name of Rabbi Yochanan that Akoil Moedim, everybody agrees, even the Rabbanon agree, but Almanas Ka'omer Akoil Moedim be'Omer Almanas Ka'omer Me'achshav Dami, which means he was arguing on what we just said in Rabbi Yehuda, because we just said in Rabbi Yehuda that the Rabbanon argue and hold Almanas as love Ka'omer Me'achshav, but Rabbi Asi in Eretz Yisrael said that everybody agrees. Ka'omer Almanas Ka'omer Me'achshav Dami. The machlokes the Rabbanon and Rebbe is el mehayoim ula achamisa. Is by hayoim ula achamisa.
A regular Almanas means for sure, man.
According to Rabasi, correct. According to Rabasi and Rebbe, correct. Frank Gemara, Tanya, we learned a brayse mehayoim ula achamisa. Get ve'ena get divrei chachamim Rebbe omer kazak get. So here it says quite clearly that Tanya's benichusa. So you see, here the machlokes between the Chacham and Rebbe is not by a case of Almanas. It's by a case of Me'ayoim Achamisa. But we just said in Rabbi Yehuda that you have to say they're arguing by Almanas as well. Rabbi Yehuda, the Amar Almanas Nami Pligi, so he holds there's a machlokes in both cases. So even though this price is close to machlokes, in the case of Me'ayoim Achamisa, they would also argue in a case of Almanas, because Rabbi Yehuda are arguing in both cases. So, Rabbi Yehuda, Amar Almanas, Nami Pligi, why did this Brisa quote the Machlokes by Mehayoim Achamisa? Why didn't the Brisa quote the Machlokes Nifiligi be Almanas? So, tomorrow, you know what? Let the Yachach for the Rebbe. The Mehayoim Achamisa, Nami Yarais again. What's a bigger Chiddush? Almanas, that it's Chalam Afreya, where it's chlor, that he means that I want it to be Chal now. Or is it a bigger chiddush that even if it is Ma'ayom Achamisa, which is much less of a clear lashon, even there it's considered a get l'mafreya. That's a bigger chiddush. So that's why the Brisa quotes the machlokes in the case of Ma'ayom Achamisa to highlight the chiddush of Rebbe that even that's considered l'mafreya. Maybe the machlokes should be by Almanas to show that even by Almanas the Rabbanan hold that it's not l'mafreya. So the Gemara koyach de teir odit. they'd rather show you a bigger chiddush that it is megureshes l'mafreya than the chiddush of the Rabbanon, which would be a chum.
Because the Lush, or because that
It's because of the lashon.
because even after the Misa, we say that the get is the common fact.
So it's because of the lashon. Let's discuss it later. I just want to chop around. I have 2 minutes left. Only if I can get to the mission. Almanas she'etein loch mikan ula'achar lamed. He has to give it to him in the 30 days. Pshita. Of course, if he said 30, that's the t'nai. No, it's not really a t'nai. It's luzuruza kamar. It's just so that it should encourage him to pay up quickly. That's why they put a time limit. But he didn't really mean to make that a t'nai in the Kiddushin. Kamash Malon, that it's a t'nai in the Kiddushin. If he doesn't pay up on time, it's not going to be a Kiddushin. What about Amanas Sheyesh Li Meshayim Zuz? Frank the Gemara, we say if you don't see that he has, it's not a Kiddushin. Maybe you should be chayshish that he has the money somewhere. How could you be so sure? We had another brayso that says that just because we don't see the money, we're still chayshish that he might have it. The other brayso that says chashin shemi yeshli says, yeah, it's a safek kedushin. Our mission says it's not mekudeshes. It means it's not vada mekudeshes, but a vada it's still a safek kedushin until we're sure he doesn't have the money. Amanasha erech mashayim zuz tana lo nischavna alers mishaloi. Clearly, she didn't just mean that she wanted to see a $200 bill. She meant, I want to see that you have that money. Then of course, it's not his money. He's a shulchani. He has a line of credit. What if someone had lent him this money because they were partnering and the venture capitalists gave him the money? So he can say, look, I have access to this type of cash to do business with. That's not good enough for her. She wants to know that he has cash. They will stop here and we'll be Mamish Bez Hashem tomorrow. So the discussion is the difference between Almanas and Mehayoim Ulachamisa. So what were you suggesting?
That we say that even as a get can cause an achamis, that.
No one says it gets Chamisa.
Yeah, I said
Yeah, besides that Rebbe, if he said my own,